Hi, what's happening? Y'all, it's your boy Rico from Street Scores, and we are coming with another Rico report. Again, with these Rico reports, if you don't already know, they're extremely random. It's random stats, random rankings, compliments, or people disrespecting the Commanders. We have some trade rumors slash ideas that are being thrown around out there for Malik Willis, the quarterback from the Tennessee Titans, and then also Dalvin Cook, the running back. Well, free agent running back, the ex-Vikings running back. It's a lot of random stuff, an update on the sale process. Also, a power ranking update where Touchdown Wire has the Commanders ranked heading into training camp. Also, an interesting point about the Commanders finding a scenario where they can hire Warren Sapp to their coaching staff, which I would absolutely love. We got to talk about all of that and more, but before we do, make sure you stiff arm that like button. Make sure you also stiff arm that subscription button, and also the bell next to that subscription button so you get notification immediately and every time I release an informative and opinionated video just like this one. Make sure you stay tuned for all of the content, at the very least daily, but I'm trying to push out 2 videos a day, even if it's just like the random clips I give y'all. And then of course I'm also working on finishing up the film sessions for every rookie that the Commanders drafted in this past 2023 draft. We already did Emmanuel Forbes, we already did Quan Martin, and now I'm working on Ricky Strongberg next, and we're going to work our way all the way down. I'm hoping that I can hurry up and knock these out before training camp starts in like 2 weeks. And also I want to get to some undrafted free agents if I get the time and if I can get my hand on their tape. So man, make sure y'all stay tuned. Without further ado, let's get it.
You tell your family you can be a commander.
All right, so first of all, let's start with some positive news. Daniel Jeremiah said recently that he sees the Commanders as a potential playoff team in 2023. He said, quote, "I think they have a chance to be a playoff team and no one is talking about them," unquote. Hey, man, stay quiet, man. Chill out. Keep the noise. You speaking a little too loud right now, because I firmly believe that the Commanders have a great shot at making the playoffs. Again, we went 8-1 last year with all of the dysfunction that we had. One of the most hurt offensive lines in the entire NFL. Taylor Heineke and Carson Wentz were literally being carried by the rest of the team. They were in the 30s and a lot of advanced QB metrics and statistics and things like that. Literally worse than other teams' backups. We're going from Scott Turner to Eric Bieniemy. We're going from those bad quarterbacks to Sam Howell, who I feel like at the very least should be at least average. So I'm just thinking that so many things just point upwards for this team. This secondary should be way better than last year, which means this entire defense is going to be way better than last year, which means our offense should have the ball more often. And again, if anything, just believe in Eric Bieniemy. Even if you don't believe in Sam Howell, if you don't believe in nothing else, believe in Eric Bieniemy, man. And again, with all of those improvements, you got to remember this is the same team that went 8-1 last year. I'm gonna continue to joke about the fact that Ron Rivera is so average that he somehow found a way to go 500 in a 17-game season, in an odd number season. He found a way to win half the games. It's just incredible to me. But still, this team went 8-1 last year, and with all of the vast improvements, I mean, let alone going from Dan Snyder to Josh Harris and Magic Johnson, Mitchell Rails, and all of those guys. There's so many improvements all across the board, on the field, off the field. I just can't see how we don't make the playoffs. We were like 1 win away from making it last year, and I feel like this team is easily, at the very least, 1 win better than last year's team. So Daniel Jeremiah, I appreciate the support, but I'm not gonna lie, as a Commanders fan and analyst, I prefer it when teams and analysts and all of these guys doubt us. I way more prefer that, because then we can just keep receipts, and then when we start winning this season and we make it to the playoffs, I'm telling you, we're gonna be able to look back and laugh at all of the comments people were making. So sadly, Daniel Jeremiah probably won't be on that list at this point, but it sounds like everybody else will be. And then also some more Jahan Dotson love. George from the Pro Football Focus organization, most notably from Pro Football Focus Fantasy, he said, quote, "I think he's one of the most underrated wide receivers in the NFL," unquote. And that's crazy, because I can see it with Terry McLaurin, because he's been here for a few years, and I think he's easily a top 10 receiver. We've been saying that, and now he's finally getting the recognition for it. But then you have Jahan Dotson, who had bad quarterback play, not a good offensive coordinator last year, and he's only coming off of his rookie season and he missed 5 games due to an injury. And to be considered an underrated wide receiver is really interesting. I think he is underrated, but you typically don't hear rookies being considered as underrated receivers. Those are typically guys that's been around for a couple of years, multiple years, and have just been steadily performing and nobody's noticed. Jahan Dotson is coming off of just a rookie season where he only played in 12 games. And he's already being considered underrated. I'm not even exactly sure if he's been in the league long enough to be considered rated. But I'm telling you, I agree. I'll tell you that right now. I think Jahan Dotson, don't be surprised if it's like a 1A, 1B type of thing. Not a wide receiver 1, not a wide receiver 2. It's a 1A, 1B between him and McLaurin. And, man, don't forget Curtis Samuel and all these other guys. But Jahan Dotson is a star, bro. I'm telling you. I mean, there's a reason that he's working out with OBJ and all of those other receivers. People are recognizing. And if you've watched all of these Rico reports I've been giving y'all for the past few days, you've been hearing Jahan Dotson compliments left and right. Him, Terry McLaurin, a lot of players on the team. But Jahan Dotson's name is the one that's coming up, honestly, the most often. And then moving on, the Commanders are also in some type of trade rumor, some type of trade idea for the naturally gifted Tennessee Titans quarterback Malik Willis. And let me go ahead and get this out the way. Y'all already know I'm extremely biased when it comes to Malik Willis because that is another Westlake alum, same high school. Cam Newton, Adam Pac-Man Jones, AJ Terrell, my boy Christopher Eubanks, who's killing it in tennis right now, just to name a few. And then also yours truly. So I'm very biased when it comes to Malik Willis. I'll definitely want to get him. And then even just beyond the bias of him being, from Atlanta, Westlake High School, all of that, I just also think he has this ridiculous ceiling where it doesn't really hurt to bring him in, especially if you can get him for extremely cheap, like a 7th round pick. It's just like a why not situation, in my opinion. I just feel like, I believe in Sam Howell too. I'm one of those people that thinks that Sam Howell is going to be a top half of the league quarterback, like top 16. I honestly do. I'm not going out there saying that he's going to be top 5, top 10, but I think he can easily be at least somewhere in the middle of the quarterbacks in the NFL, which again, like I already talked about we're going 8-8-1 last year. Carson Wentz and Taylor Heineke were in the 30s, according to a lot of statistics. So if Sam Howell is at the very least in the middle, this team is just going to be way better going into this season compared to last year, just off of that alone. So again, I'm a Sam Howell believer, and I like Jacoby Brissett as that veteran backup. He's the 4th down QB sneak god, arguably the best QB sneak quarterback in the NFL. That's a really useful secret weapon, like very random thing to have on your team when necessary. And then to bring in a potential guy like a Malik Willis that you could develop, I say why not, honestly. But at the same time, as a Sam Howell believer, if we don't make this trade, I'm not upset. Again, I'm biased, so I want Malik Willis more so than anything else, just because I want as many people from Atlanta, as many people from Westlake as possible. That's why I was rooting for us to get Cam Newton and guys like that. So, because as of right now, the only people from Atlanta metro area is we have Antonio Gibson, Montez Sweat, Jamin Davis, and then technically Alex Armah, the fullback, that's pretty much just a camp body. That's all I got. And we don't have any Georgia Bulldogs other than Jake Fromm. So I would love to bring in an additional Atlanta guy to the team. But again, that's just extreme bias. So if you have other opinions on it, as non-biased opinions, completely objective opinions on it, definitely let me know in the comment section. But again, even bias aside, I just see it as like a why not. Loads of potential. You really don't lose anything, especially if he's going for, like, say, a 7th round pick. But I highly doubt that happens because the Tennessee Titans, I keep hearing out of their camps and all of the notifications I'm getting from Twitter, ESPN and stuff, that right now he's beating Will Levis in the QB competition. But that's not really saying much because Will Levis is already a raw quarterback, but he's also the rookie. Will Levis already has a year under his belt. He's played a few NFL games. So you would kind of expect, it would be a terrible thing if Will Levis was outperforming him. You kind of expect him to outperform Will Levis. So I don't really see that as much of a compliment to Malik Willis, but at the same time, that also shows that the Titans may hold on to him. And if they're willing to get rid of him, they're probably asking for more now that he's technically above Will Levis on the depth chart, I guess, right now. So, and some people expected Will Levis to come right out the gate and be better than Malik Willis, but I didn't. And just to let you know, this came from a CBS Sports article who put together a list of 5 teams that Malik Willis could play for if things with the Titans don't work out. And Washington was named as one, with offensive coordinator Eric Bieniemy being the reason why. Quote, while he rose to prominence during the Patrick Mahomes era, Washington's new offensive coordinator Eric Bieniemy was integral in Alex Smith's resurgence before Mahomes took over in Kansas City. And those Chiefs offenses astutely tapped into Smith's athleticism as a runner and scrambler, unquote. which is, I mean, that's a good point to bring up. Alex Smith looked his most athletic with Eric Bieniemy over there for the Chiefs. Of course, Andy Reid as well, but the Commanders just couldn't. The Redskins, Washington football team, and Commanders just couldn't unlock that type of Alex Smith. But Eric Bieniemy could. So they're basically saying that if Eric Bieniemy can bring the most out of a athletic running quarterback like an Alex Smith, imagine what he could do with a Malik Willis is basically what they're saying. And then they have more to speak on about Eric Bieniemy, but that's pretty much the main points. If you want to go read that article, you can go check it out. And then also, our name is being attached to Dalvin Cook, the ex-Vikings running back, purely just an unrestricted free agent. You can just go get him if you're willing to pay the money. I saw a notification recently that the Bills are willing to take him, but they're like, boy, you're going to have to take a super team-friendly deal if you're just trying to chase a ring. So it sounds like Dalvin Cook, if he didn't already accept that by now, he's definitely going for big money. We don't have that big money. But at the same time, Bucky Brooks on Move the Sticks podcast, he said, quote, I wish they, as in Washington, had a marquee running back. I like Robinson and Gibson, but to me, Dalvin Cook in that uniform changes how you have to play their offense and opens up the field for playmakers on the outside, unquote. And I mean, you can't necessarily agree with that exact statement, but that's a very narrow way of looking at it. I feel like Brian Robinson and Antonio Gibson are going to bring the same exact thing to this team. You can argue that Dalvin Cook is easily the more proven running back, but I think Antonio Gibson's ceiling is ridiculous, and we still haven't even seen the best of Brian Robinson, who was still currently recovering from gunshot wounds while he was running the ball last year. I think we're going to see a more explosive, more closer to what he was in Alabama version of him this upcoming season compared to what we saw from him last year. I love this running back group. Honestly, I think it's ridiculously underrated, most notably because I'm just a big Antonio Gibson fan. I just really think that guys that big that are that fast and agile, you just don't find those guys. Every team does not have an Antonio Gibson. Only a handful of Antonio Gibsons even exist on earth. And I just feel like if anybody, Eric Bieniemy can find a way to get the most out of a guy like that. You can never forget that 80-yard screen against the Bills that Antonio Gibson took to the house. Not too many people, especially as big as he is, can do that type of stuff. Guys are typically quick or strong. Antonio Gibson is pretty much just as big as Brian Robinson's, but runs a 4.3 something. Like, that's ridiculous. And then he has wide receiver experience. So I just feel like we're good. Dalvin Cook, I mean, if he were willing to come for an extremely team-friendly deal, something similar to what the Bills probably offered him, then cool. I mean, what would it hurt? But at the same time, we're not bringing in Dalvin Cook. He's asking for way too much money. He's going to want the ball a lot. It doesn't make a lot of sense at all, but it would be fun in a Madden, but not in real life. Also, moving on, the NFL and the NFL Films have officially selected the New York Jets to serve as this year's team on Hard Knocks. Of course, they have Aaron Rodgers and Zach Wilson on the cover of the breaking news thing on Twitter that Adam Schefter tweeted, so that's pretty funny. Jets report the training camp 1 week from today, July 19th, and the cameras will be rolling in full force. Hey, man, I really wish that the Commanders would have gotten it. I think we were going to be the most entertaining team possible. I think, honestly, just based on the personalities we have on this team, maybe I'm a little biased, but you can easily argue that out of all of the potential candidates, the Jets are arguably the best team on paper. So I can see it. I mean, Aaron Rodgers as your quarterback, Zach Wilson, all of his controversy, and they have some really fun personalities on that team as well. So I'm not mad at them picking the Jets, but I easily would have just preferred the Commanders. I feel like this is like the only year I've ever wanted the Commanders on Hard Knocks. Most years, pretty much every year other than this one where we were a potential candidate, I was like, nah, I'm good. That's too much of a distraction potentially. And at the end of the day, I just feel like these are grown men. If people having cameras around you affect how you perform on the field, you shouldn't be playing this sport anyway. But it just seemed like with the culture that we had in previous years and the players, we honestly couldn't handle it. But now I felt like we were ready and we could have done it. But hey, man, the Jets got it. Shouts out to them. Maybe we'll get it next year. We'll see. But we'll see even next year if we even want it. This was the only year I've ever wanted it. So moving on, Bryce Ewing from Yard Barker ranked all teams in the NFL as far as under pressure this next season. And he has us as the #1 team out of the entire NFL, the #1 team with the most pressure on him. He said, quote, the Commanders haven't had a winning season since 2016. And remember, a couple of Rico reports ago, a couple of videos ago, we have the longest dry spell of an 11+ win season. You have the Jaguars 2007, then you got to go all the way back to 1991 for the Commanders. We're the only team that haven't had an 11-plus win season since 2007 out of the entire NFL. So I can see that as well. But also, even when they won the NFC East in 2020, their record was 7-9. Great point. I still don't really appreciate that season as much as a lot of other people do. Felt like we barely crawled, tripped, and fell into the playoffs. After passing on quarterbacks like Will Levis and Hendon Hooker in April's draft, the squad will rely on Sam Howell, a 5th-round pick for 2022. Did we mention that the new owners are about to take over? After holding DC hostage for over 2 decades, Dan Snyder has agreed to sell the team to Josh Harris. In other words, everyone associated with the Commanders will be playing for their jobs this year. How's that for urgency? And I can definitely see that. Ron Rivera is definitely on the hot seat. He may have hired his replacement, Eric Bieniemy, to become the next head coach for the Commanders if everything doesn't go well right now. And then, yeah, with new ownership, I can see it. Everybody in the front office, the coaching staff, the GMs, everybody right now is playing for their jobs, fighting for their jobs, coaching for their jobs, all of that type of stuff. So I can see that. But at the same time, I don't really see too much pressure. Like when I hear pressure, I think, oh man, the players are going to have this monkey on their back. Like, man, I got to make sure I do this and that before. I feel like the coaching staff in the front office may have a lot of pressure, but I don't feel like the players necessarily do. Sam Howell already knows what it is. Like, don't perform this year, we'll just draft a quarterback in the upcoming draft. So maybe there's some pressure on him, but I feel like for the most part, there are a lot of other teams that have more pressure on their players specifically more than us. Also, Touchdown Wire recently ranked its pre-training camp power rankings, and the Commanders came in 22nd. They said the biggest unknown in the league right now is Washington quarterback Sam Howell, who the Commanders have dumped a ton of faith into to open next season. While the Commanders have a solid base team, if Sam Howell doesn't play way beyond his draft status, Washington can be in for a tough year. And that's a good point. I'm just, again, a firm believer in Sam Howell. I've seen enough, and I believe in his potential enough to believe that we're going to have a really good season this year, and I think he's going to be a big part of it. Also, Dan Orlovsky reveals Commander Sam Howell perfection. For some, the Washington Commanders' stance on having Sam Howell as the starting quarterback to be next season is a beard scratcher. With only one regular season start to his name, some think the jump to full-time starter might mean Washington takes a step back. Again, for reasons I've already stated, there's no way he can be worse than what we had in Carson Wentz and Taylor Heineke last year. There's just no way. But for former NFL quarterback Dan Orlovsky, with the help of ESPN Mina Kimes, and shouts out to Dan Orlovsky for breaking the Dylan Raiola news to Georgia a little early, that was funny, has detailed why the Commanders might be in a good spot with Howell as their starter. Orlovsky broke down a play from Sam Howell's first start against the Dallas Cowboys in Week 18 of last season and was left impressed with the footwork and timing from the young quarterback. Quote, watch what we focus on when Sam Howell lets the ball out of his hands. 1, 2, 3, he's putting his back foot in the ground. Ball has to come out right now. Ball is out left shoulder. That's perfection. Unquote. So throughout that video, Dan Orlovsky and Mina Kimes are basically presenting points as to why Sam Howell should be a great quarterback for what we got going on. Eric Bieniemy should be a great offensive coordinator for what Sam Howell has going on. And this team should be far more successful than a lot of people give us credit for. Moving on. Could the Commanders appoint Warren Sapp to their coaching staff in 2023? Shouts out to Dean Jones from Rico's Rag. He said, there are so many different dynamics to monitor throughout the Washington Commanders mandatory minicamp. It's hard to keep up at times. Players are coming to the fore in pursuit of roster spots. Established stars are aiming to set the tone, and new coaches are expecting higher standards than those who came before in the quest for a successful 2023 campaign. And then he goes on and on and on, but then he says, one factor that didn't go unnoticed by those in attendance earlier this week was the presence of Warren Sapp at the facility. The Pro Football Hall of Famer worked with the defensive line, offered advice, and motivated them during drills in his usual boisterous fashion. And remember, he was working with us, the defensive line, last offseason as well. And I believe they offered him something, or at least asked him, inquired about him potentially of staying long-term. Or at the very least, a reporter asked him, and he was like, nah, I'm good. I love being where I'm at in Florida. I just like to come up here and help these guys. I love this defensive line. I love this coaching staff. I'm literally just doing it out of the kindness in my heart. But really, I just prefer to live and be in Florida all the time, which I can't blame him. And then Rico's Rag goes on to say that the Commanders should offer Warren Sapp a coaching position. And I completely agree. If we haven't already, we need to go ahead and get on it. They said the benefits are obvious, and Sapp would command immediate respect within the locker room, such as the esteem in which he is held around the NFL. However, according to Matthew Perez from the Washington Times during his recent appearance on the Red Zone in the Lab podcast, it's a long shot at best. Quote, he, as in Warren Sapp, popped in last year and is really good friends with some of the staff here. We talked about the possibility of coaching full-time last year, and he seemed to suggest it was not something he thought wasn't in his future. but it's a welcome voice to have around. It adds something a little different and definitely breaks up the mundane for players. Yeah, I mean, just Warren Sapp coming out of nowhere every now and then definitely has to make practice a little bit more exciting, and definitely feels less like every day is running into each other and getting more boring and all of that type of stuff. So, man, I appreciate him. Again, I highly doubt that he joins this coaching staff, but as long as he's willing to be around, I'll take any and every piece of advice and help and wisdom that he's willing to give this defensive line, this entire defense, this entire team, man. Warren Sapp, we want you around as much as you're willing to be around. Also, some really interesting statistics. Warren Sharp pointed out on Twitter the number of drives ended in a punt or turnover in 2022. And then you have Detroit number 1 with only 66. Buffalo and Kansas City are second, tied for second with 71. Then you have Green Bay, then you have Philly, then you have the Bengals, then the Ravens and 49ers, and so on and so forth. And then you have to go all the way almost to the bottom. We had 106. Tied with the Jets, and then below us are only the Tennessee Titans, the Houston Texans, and the Denver Broncos. That's it. Every other team was better than us, again, at the statistic of number of drives ended in a punt or a turnover in 2022, which means your offense just wasn't able to put up points, whether it be a field goal or a touchdown, and we were one of the worst teams last year. Also, a really random statistic, Washington definitely has a type at tight end. The Commanders' tight end room is the tallest in the NFL. Top 3 tallest tight end units, the Washington Commanders, with the average height being 6'6.5", and then the Bears are second with 6'5" and 1/4, and the Rams are tied for second with the Bears for the same height. And then you also have the bottom 3 tallest tight end units, with the Cardinals at 6'3" as an average, Bengals 6'3.5", and then the Panthers 6'3 3/4. So we are, at the very least by an inch on average, have the tallest tight end room out of the entire NFL. Shouts out to Curtis Hodges being 6'8" and skewing the data a little bit, but Logan Thomas, Cole Turner, all of those guys are tall as well. So I'm really interested in seeing how this experiment goes. I mean, if our tight end group looks really good, then you're like, well, maybe that height thing is a thing, but if they go out there and don't perform well, then it's like, all right, maybe we need to get a little bit shorter in the tight end room, but we'll see. Also, shouts out to Chris Cooley for pointing out the fact that Dax Milne actually had the 4th highest punt return grade, 73.5 in the NFL, according to Pro Football Focus. So that's really interesting. Do with that as you will. I'm also in the camp that I want to bring in a potential explosive returner that could replace a Dax Milne, and we brought in undrafted free agent Casimir Allen, and he looked really good until he's been dealing with a hamstring issue for the past few weeks. We'll see if he's ready to go by training camp. So we'll see how that goes, but it's really interesting that he was the 4th highest graded punt returner out of the entire NFL last year from Pro Football Focus. That's really interesting. And then also, I just want to remind y'all that the NFL owners will meet July 20th, 8 days from now, to vote on the official sale of this team. So by July 20th, in 8 days, the Commanders should officially be handed over from Dan Snyder to Josh Harris. So get ready to celebrate, man. I just wanted to make sure I updated y'all on that. And of course, also, as you can see on the thumbnails, that is the countdown to the Week 1 game against the Arizona Cardinals. That's how many days we have left until we're watching regular season Commanders football. So make sure you check all of my thumbnails for that. And yeah, man, that's the end of this video. Please get in the comment section. Let me know how you feel about everything discussed in this video. Please leave a like on this video if you liked it, if you learned anything. Please stiff arm that like button, because that's really big for me. Also, stiff arm that subscription button and stiff arm the bell next to that subscription button so you get a notification each and every time I'm releasing all of these type of videos, all of my film sessions that I'm working on for the rookie class, everything. Again, daily content. I'm trying to get to the point where I can put out 2 videos a day too. I'm doing my best with that as I can. So make sure y'all stay tuned. I appreciate all the support, man. Shouts out to all of my sponsors, especially my Pro Bowl sponsors. Names you scrolling on the screen right now. And of course, get in the comment section. Let me know how you feel about everything discussed in this video. Every single thing. The Jahan Dotson praise, the Malik Willis, Dalvin Cook trade rumors and ideas that are going around, and Daniel Jeremiah rating is higher than most NFL analysts, Dan Orlovsky and Mina Kimes being big fans of Sam Howell's potential, all of that type of stuff. Get in the comment section. Let me know about all of that, and I'm gonna catch y'all later. I'm out.